Northern Ireland is one of the most politically complex places in Europe. It is part of the United Kingdom, located in the northeast of the island of Ireland, and it shares a land border with the Republic of Ireland. That border is open today, meaning people can cross it in everyday life without checkpoints or passport controls. But behind that ordinary-looking border is a history of partition, competing national identities, violence, reform, and peace-building. Northern Ireland is often described in different ways: a country, a province, or a region. Those words are not just technical labels. They reflect deeper disagreements over what Northern Ireland is, where it belongs, and how its people understand themselves. At the 2021 census, Northern Ireland had a population of just over 1.9 million people. That is about 3% of the United Kingdom's population, but more than a quarter of the population of the island of Ireland. Its small size makes its political importance easy to underestimate. Northern Ireland sits at the meeting point of British and Irish history. It is connected to the rest of the UK through government, citizenship, trade, and institutions, but it is also deeply connected to the Republic of Ireland through geography, family ties, culture, and cross-border life. This is why decisions about Northern Ireland often involve not only Belfast and London, but also Dublin, and sometimes the wider international community. Northern Ireland was created in 1921, after the Government of Ireland Act 1920 partitioned Ireland into two political units. The 6 northeastern counties became Northern Ireland, with their own devolved government inside the United Kingdom. This arrangement was supported by Unionists, who wanted to remain part of the UK. Many Unionists were Protestants, often descended from settlers from Britain, especially in Ulster. In contrast, many Irish nationalists wanted a united, independent Ireland. They were generally Catholic, and they saw partition as a denial of Irish self-determination. Southern Ireland soon became the Irish Free State in 1922, which later evolved into the modern Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland, however, stayed within the United Kingdom. From the beginning, Northern Ireland contained a built-in political tension. It had a Unionist majority, but also a large nationalist minority. For many Unionists, Northern Ireland represented security, a way to preserve their British identity and political connection to London. For many nationalists, it represented separation from the rest of Ireland and rule by a government they did not feel represented them. These identities were not simply about religion, but religion, culture, politics, and history often overlapped. Protestants were more likely to identify as British and Unionist. Catholics were more likely to identify as Irish and nationalist. But there have always been exceptions, mixed identities, and people who prefer to call themselves Northern Irish, Ulster, or something else entirely. The creation of Northern Ireland was not peaceful. Around the time of partition, Belfast and other areas experienced serious communal violence. During the conflict known as the Troubles in Ulster from 1920 to 1922, clashes between Protestant Unionists and Catholic nationalists led to more than 500 deaths. More than 10,000 people became refugees, most of them Catholics. This early violence mattered because it shaped memories, neighborhoods, and fears for generations. Communities became more separated, socially and physically. People learned where they felt safe and where they did not. The result was a society where politics was not just debated in Parliament, but lived through streets, schools, workplaces, and family histories. For roughly the next 50 years, Northern Ireland was governed by an unbroken series of Unionist Party administrations. The devolved Parliament at Stormont controlled many local matters, while Northern Ireland remained part of the United Kingdom. Nationalists and Catholics, however, often argued that the system treated them unfairly. Unionist governments were accused of discrimination in areas such as housing, employment, voting arrangements, and policing. Whether in local government boundaries, access to public housing, or job opportunities, many Catholics believed the system was designed to protect Unionist dominance. This sense of exclusion became one of the central grievances that later fueled demands for reform. By the late 1960s, a civil rights movement emerged in Northern Ireland. Its campaign focused on ending discrimination and securing equal treatment, especially for Catholics and nationalists. Protest marches demanded reforms in housing, voting, and policing. But many loyalists, who strongly supported the union with Britain, viewed the movement with suspicion. They feared it was not just about civil rights, but a step toward Irish republicanism and the end of Northern Ireland's place in the UK. As protests, counter-protests, and state responses escalated, the situation deteriorated. What began as a reform campaign became part of a much wider breakdown in trust, authority, and public order. This unrest developed into the period known simply as the Troubles. For about 30 years, Northern Ireland experienced conflict involving Republican paramilitaries, Loyalist paramilitaries, and state forces. Republican groups generally sought to end British rule in Northern Ireland and create a united Ireland. Loyalist groups generally fought to keep Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom and targeted those they associated with republicanism or nationalism. The British Army, police, and other state institutions also played major roles. The human cost was immense. More than 3,500 people were killed and around 50,000 injured. For a population of under 2 million, that impact reached into almost every community. The Troubles were not only a series of violent incidents. They reshaped daily life. In some areas, communities became divided by so-called peace walls, physical barriers built to reduce violence between neighborhoods. Schools, housing, social clubs, and even shopping patterns often reflected sectarian separation. Security checkpoints, bomb scares, funerals, and news reports became part of ordinary experience. At the same time, most people were not combatants. They were families trying to work, study, worship, and live under extreme pressure. Understanding Northern Ireland means recognizing both the political causes of the conflict and the quieter social damage caused by fear, grief, and segregation. A major turning point came with the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. Also known as the Belfast Agreement, it was a central achievement of the peace process. The agreement did not ask everyone to agree on Northern Ireland's ultimate future. Instead, it created a framework for sharing power, respecting both British and Irish identities, and changing Northern Ireland's constitutional status only with democratic consent. It led to the Northern Ireland Assembly, created under the Northern Ireland Act 1998, which handles a range of devolved policy matters. Other powers remain reserved for the UK government. The agreement also created structures for cooperation between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement also recognized that Northern Ireland's politics cannot be managed by one government alone. The Government of Northern Ireland cooperates with the Government of Ireland in several areas, reflecting the reality of a shared island. The Republic of Ireland also has a consultative role on non-devolved matters through the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference. This does not mean Dublin governs Northern Ireland, but it does mean the Irish government has a formal voice in certain discussions. The structure is deliberately layered: local power sharing in Belfast, UK authority in reserved areas, Irish involvement where appropriate, and cross-border cooperation where daily life makes it necessary. Since the late 1990s, Northern Ireland has changed significantly. Paramilitary disarmament, security, normalization, and political compromise helped move society away from large-scale violence. Its economy has also grown after decades of decline and instability. At the time of partition, Northern Ireland was the most industrialized part of Ireland, but traditional industries weakened, and the Troubles worsened economic problems. Unemployment peaked at 17.2% in 1986, but later fell below 10% in the 2010s, closer to the rest of the UK. Still, economic recovery has not erased deeper social divisions. Sectarianism, segregated communities, and occasional violence remain serious challenges. Northern Ireland's culture reflects all of this complexity. It shares culture with both Ireland and the United Kingdom, and many people experience those connections at the same time. In some sports, teams and governing bodies operate on an all-Ireland basis, representing the whole island. In association football, Northern Ireland competes separately. At the Commonwealth Games, Northern Ireland has its own team, while at the Olympics, athletes may be eligible to compete for either Great Britain or Ireland. These sporting arrangements reveal a broader truth: Northern Ireland cannot be understood through a single identity. It is a place shaped by overlapping loyalties, painful history, and a peace that depends on respecting difference. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.